Hey guys, it's Melissa. I'm here to talk to you today about stress urinary incontinence or stress incontinence, which is what a lot of people will have sometimes after having babies, sometimes just because they're very athletic. It is what happens, it's the leaking that happens when you cough or sneeze or laugh or lift or jump, those sorts of situations that cause increased pressure in the abdominal cavity, and that increased pressure creates that leakage, that's that stress incontinence. So how much of that stress incontinence should you tolerate? Maybe you only leak when you sneeze, when your bladder is full, or maybe you only leak when you run 5 miles, but not when you run 2 miles. Or maybe you don't leak at all when you jump, but only when you're doing double unders, or only when you're doing box jumps or something like that. In my opinion, you shouldn't have to tolerate any amount of stress incontinence, any amount of leakage. So I think that the thing that happens when you are leaking with certain sneezes, not with every sneeze, or if you're leaking with certain exercises, not every exercise, it is your body's way of telling you that your body can manage that pressure up to a certain point or a certain threshold. So certain exercises might bring you up above that threshold, and your body changes its strategy to maintain to manage the pressure in your abdomen. When your body changes its normal strategy, sometimes that is where things go a little wonky and you get that leakage or that pressure down against that bladder, which causes that leakage. A lot of people think that stress incontinence is caused by weakness in your pelvic floor muscles, and that can be the case, but it's not always the case. So a lot of people will tell you, just do your Kegels and you'll get that to go away, no problem. Just do your Kegels, 60 a day, just keep squeezing your pelvic floor. In my opinion, I have seen a lot of people that have strong pelvic floors and have leakage with coughing, sneezing, exercising, jumping. And I have seen people that have very weak pelvic floors based on my testing, and they have no leakage at all. So I don't know that your pelvic floor strength is necessarily correlated to when or how or if you're leaking. So it's the solution to that stress incontinence is a lot more broad than just doing Kegels. A lot of times it has to do with your posture, your strategy, your core strategy to manage that pressure when you're lifting or when you're jumping or when you're running or when you're even coughing or sneezing. So think about like if you leak when you're coughing or sneezing and you don't leak when you're sitting at the dinner table, but you leak when you're sitting on the couch, sometimes that pressure can be different based on how you're sitting. So a lot of people, when they sit on the couch, they get into that kind of slumped forward position. So sometimes that posture and how those ribs are stacked over your pelvis can make a big difference in how much you can control and manage the pressure in your abdomen. So the solution is a lot more broad than just fixing your pelvic floor strength and doing a bunch of Kegels. Stress incontinence is a pressure problem. So I'm going to give you 3 tips today that I hope will help you at least try to think differently about that leakage that you're getting, and maybe you're tolerating or you have been tolerating for years and you're now just hearing me tell you that you shouldn't have to tolerate it, so you want to try to do something about it. So step number 1 is what we call the knack in pelvic floor physical therapy. It is just that pre-contraction of your pelvic floor before you cough, sneeze, lift, move, jump, those sorts of things. So using your breath, and I believe I have a video which I'll link below if I can about breathing. Otherwise, next up, breathing next week. We'll talk all about breathing. But the knack is using your breath. So you're going to take an inhale. Think about an umbrella all around the rib cage. Breathing into that umbrella on an inhale. Letting that pelvic floor relax, that belly rises, those ribs come out. Use breathing into that back body, that whole 360-degree breath in. And then as you exhale, you're gonna squeeze that pelvic floor. So you're gonna lift and squeeze and lift all those muscles in between those sit bones and that pubic bone and your tailbone. Okay, so you're gonna use that exhale before you move or before you cough or before you sneeze. So if you feel a cough or sneeze coming on, or if you're going to get up out of a chair, you can practice this, teaching your body to pre-contract those muscles like they're supposed to be doing to train your body to do it better next time. Okay, so before you cough or sneeze, see if you can notice that coming on. Take a quick breath in, nice big inhale, and then as you exhale, squeeze your pelvic floor, squeeze and lift, hold as you sneeze or cough, and hopefully that will help a little bit with that leakage with coughing or sneezing. And the more you practice that pre-contraction when you're getting up from a chair, take an inhale, exhale, squeeze your pelvic floor and stand. When you're getting up out of the car, when you're lifting your baby, if you're a new mom, all of those little things throughout your day, you can incorporate that pre-contraction in. And the more you train your brain to do it, the more your brain will do it on its own without you having to think about it. So step number 1, practice the neck. Step number 2 is pay attention to that posture and your alignment. So if you're sitting on the couch and you feel a sneeze or cough coming on, see if you can sit yourself up nice and tall, stack your rib cage over your pelvis, directly over your pelvis, try to avoid this sort of position, try to avoid this sort of position. So find that neutral spine, stacking it right over that pelvis to try to find that best pressure management position, that best alignment, and see if that will help a little bit too. The way you think about that with exercise, so if say you're running or you're jumping, there's a lady, can't remember her name right now. She teaches this awesome course for pre and postpartum athleticism. And I will tag her when I come up with her name, but she always says, this is funny because it makes me laugh and it's something that I would say, tits over toes. So if you think about getting that chest over those toes, and it's almost like you're feeling like you're leaning forward, but actually what most of us stand in this sort of position where we're kind of in that backward lean, that backward motion. So if you think about when you're exercising, when you're jumping rope, when you're running, getting that weight forward so that chest is over those toes, it'll get you in a better position to manage that pressure in that abdomen, okay? So number 1 is practice the neck. Number 2 is pay attention to your posture and your alignment. And if that is with an exercise, you're gonna think about chest over toes, okay? So a little bit of that forward lean. And then that third one is kind of what we already talked about, is use your breath. So if you're leaking with jumping, depending on when during your jump you're leaking, maybe you're leaking when you're lifting off, maybe you're leaking when you're landing. Try to play with when you take a quick exhale. So if you're jumping rope and you're having a hard time with your jumping rope, and that's when you're finding you're leaking a lot, think about chest over toes first, and then think about quick exhales. So if you leak when you land, think about quick exhales when you're landing. So you're going just like that. And see if you can add that little breath in to help engage that pelvic floor, to help manage that pressure a little better. Like I said, this is a pressure problem. So if we can learn how to manage that pressure with those higher loads, those more intense activities, that's when we're gonna help decrease that leakage that we're getting, okay? So 3 little tips. Hopefully, if they work, let me know. If you need any more help, please comment below. Remember, number 3, practice your neck, pre-squeeze that pelvic floor before you cough or sneeze or get up from a chair or lift your baby. Number 2, pay attention to that alignment, stack your ribs over your pelvis. Think about that lean forward, chest over those toes. So not this sort of lean forward, whole body lean forward. Think about almost like you're gonna fall forward in that nice, strong, long line position, okay? And then number 3, use your breath. Quick exhales at whatever point in that jump or that exercise that you might be having trouble. So if it's when you're landing, you're taking those quick exhales in that forward lean position, okay? So give those 3 tips a try. Let me know if they work for you. I would love to hear if they work, because that would be awesome feedback for me to make sure that I'm telling everybody the greatest tips to help them feel better and not have to tolerate all that leaking. Have an awesome Monday. See you later.